Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! This happened 10 years ago. My wife and I had a destination wedding. We had a large group fly with us, so the airline gave us a free upgrade to first class. We were given seats A and B of row 4. Window and aisle for those not familiar with airline seating. C and D were in the middle of the plane with no windows, and E and F were aisle and window on the other side of the plane. When we boarded, there was a couple in our seats. We asked them to move so we could have our seats, and surprisingly they outright refused. I didn't want to fight with them, nor was it my job. I grabbed the flight attendant and explained the situation. She came over and confirmed that they were in row 1, seat C and D, and she asked them to move, but they refused. She told them that they didn't have a choice. They became very rude about it and still refused. Before it escalated any further, I offered to swap seats with them now that we know where they were sitting. I had no problem with their seats either. These are free upgrades after all. The flight attendant and the couple agreed that we were officially swapping seats. Everyone was happy, and the flight attendant made sure that we got a glass of champagne first. About 5 minutes after all of this went down, another couple gets on a plane, and I guess, unsurprisingly, it turns out the airline double-booked the seats we were originally assigned. The couple we swapped with were also part of a group package free upgrades. So the couple coming on took priority since they actually paid for their first class seats. After some more arguing, the couple we swapped with agreed to give those seats. I was kind of shocked since first class was full at this point. Then, what shouldn't have been a surprise, the couple began moving their bags above our new seats in row 1. The flight attendant stopped them and pointed out that they had officially swapped seats with us. She told them there were seats available in coach. They began yelling and screaming and being all around nasty people. Eventually, a flight attendant got the captain, who came out and told them their choice was to go to coach or to get another flight, and they reluctantly went to coach. The woman was bawling loudly the whole way. It seemed like everything was good for a couple of hours, and about 2 to 3 hours into the flight, an old guy comes into first class. I was asleep at this point and was woken up by him grabbing me and trying to haul me out of my seat. I'm a big guy, and this guy much smaller and a lot drunk than me, so it didn't take much to reject his attempts. Turns out, he was the father of the woman who we swapped seats with. I got up just to make sure I was able to protect myself, and this stupid old man threw a punch. It was weak and barely grazed my arm. But that's not something you should do on a flight especially. A guy who I assume was the air marshal grabbed him and dragged him out of first class. Things calmed down again for about 30 minutes before the woman came rushing into first class. She starts yelling and trying to fight the flight attendant. The same guy walked, dragged her to the coach and returned. A few hours later, without any more incidents, the plane landed at our destination. We were asked to remain seated when the plane was parked. A small team of cops boarded the plane and removed the daughter and father in handcuffs. Funny thing was that we were staying at the same hotel as them, and one of their guests told one of our guests that they were in jail for at least a couple of days. I must point out that this took place about 10 to 15 years ago. When I was in my early 20s, I was a manager at a movie theater chain. It was a great job, with tons of awesome first experiences in my life. It was one of the first in the area that included a game room, restaurant, and a bar. I never thought there would be a problem with the bar, considering maximum movies were around 3 hours and usually people didn't want to leave the movie to grab refills and miss a key part of the movie. One evening, the last film already started. I was counting down drawers, sending the majority of the staff home, all except one young new usher whose job was to make sure there weren't any problems in the theaters and bid guests a good night as they exited the theaters following the end of their movies. I was finishing the counting of the drawers I was finishing the counting of the drawers and doing final paperwork when the other manager asked to go home earlier. There hadn't been any reason to have more than one manager there when the night was pretty much over with. It wasn't even a few minutes after the other manager had left, and I got a call in the office asking me to come out, and as a few guests wanted to speak to me. When I came out from the rear of the concession counters, the usher Joel was standing there with these two elderly women. They say, sir, we would like to make a complaint. There is a man in our theater that is yelling at his wife. We think he's drunk, and he seems like he's going to become abusive." That's about the gist of what they had to say. Then proceeded to tell me that they asked their husbands to do something, but there was no such luck there. I told her I would take care of it. The ladies walked back off to the theater. I told my usher to come with me as I walked into the theater. I walked in and didn't show myself. Just sat in the hallway and listened for everything that seemed to be true. Didn't take long. A roar of a voice shouting at the woman for spilling the popcorn and yada yada can't do anything right. I appeared and was able to spot the guy. He stared right at me and didn't try to hide his feelings. "What's this jerk want?" I acted, walked up the stairs, asked the guy if he could keep his voice down for the remaining of the movie. He blurted back, "I'll do as I damn well please." I stepped back a little by his reply and almost ate crap on the floor filled with beer cups. I looked up to the husbands and they had the look of worry on their faces and turned back to the guy. "I am going to have to ask you to leave. You are disturbing others' experience." He stood up. Panic sets in as I had to no longer bend down to talk to him. I had to look up. A quiet look over to the usher who obviously no longer had my back, and a look back to the gentleman. I am not going anywhere. A slight urge of fake confidence came as the elderly woman behind us shouted, "He's the manager. Do as he says." "Sir, you need to leave now." "You're going to have to make me." "If that's what I've got to do." The drunk puts down the beer cup, rolls up his sleeves, and before another second passes, I shout, "Not here. Outside, I demand." I turn around to walk past my usher before as the guy follows me and tells him to call the police. He hurries out and the guy walks out of the theater. He's pissed, and I'm scared. The door shuts and he gets closer. I stop him and say, "It's got to be outside. I'm not getting fired for fighting on the property." I point to the nearest exit, and he starts walking with an angry force, and I head the same direction behind him, taking off my name badge and tie. The guy barges through the door, and I run quickly behind him and shut the door. Thank God the door automatically locks. It takes him a minute to realize what just happened, and if this was a cartoon, steam would be flying out of his nose and ears as he starts hitting the glass hard, enough to crack it before the police arrived. Thankfully, we were by a police fill station, so we never had a problem with him taking too long. A little bit of that fake confidence turned genuine as the police arrived and the guy was putting handcuffs. I talked with the police for a little bit, handed over the video feed of him exiting the theater to walking outside, waited until the movie had finished to inform his wife, who wasn't worried at all that he had gone to jail. She said upon leaving that he deserved a night in there and walked out to her car and left. The elderly woman thanked me and left as well. I went back to the office, finished up my paperwork, left a note for the morning managers to watch the video of my heroism, locked everything up and headed home. I just witnessed the most beautiful piece of malicious compliance at my local supermarket. It has a daily counter where you take a paper ticket and wait your turn. There is a digital display that shows the next number, but when it's quiet, the staff often just serve the next person without advancing the number of the display, and it gets out of whack. Today was one such day. I pulled ticket number 87 and the display said 29. There were two people ahead of me at the counter, some guy who was apparently 85 and what turned out to be Karen at 86. While Deli Girl is helping man number 85, Karen launches into a tirade about the display being on 29, yelling at the young girl behind the counter that she was lazy and causing confusion. I just rolled my eyes and threw a look of understanding sympathy to the girl behind the counter as she finished up with guy number 85. What happened next was priceless. Karen sees number 85 leave and launches into her order. The deli girl cuts her off with a saccharine sweet smile and says, "One moment please, ma'am." Picks up the clicker for the display and clicks it over and over again until it reaches 86. It took quite a while. Needless to say, Karen was mad. She glared at the girl behind the counter the whole time, while I stood there with a huge grin on my face. And the best part, she couldn't even criticize because she was the one going off about it being wrong. After finishing Karen's order, the deli girl tried to apologize to me for the delay. I told her she'd absolutely made my day. It's not often you see service staff being able to deliver a customer service slapdown. But when you do, it's glorious to watch. My new manager at work is one of those people that absolutely has to be in control, even when you're exceeding every scorecard measure. Keeping your head down, not putting a toe out of line, she still asks you to come to a meeting room to discuss some minor issue or another. Recently, she pulled me into a meeting to discuss me being late from work. Protocol is to call in, say we'll be late, then submit a schedule adjustment request when we arrive. She accused me of not calling in or submitting a request, but I was able to prove I did. Only instead of leaving it at that, she insisted I now needed to call her and explain why I was late. That's not the process. I told her and she said she was making a new one. So now I call her at 6 a.m. on her day off to let her know if I'm going to be late. She also had a meeting with me because my scorecard for a stat was 99 out of 100, with a target of 50. She had to point out the 1 out of 100 I missed. She also did the same for a handling time issue where I'm hitting an average of 600 seconds with a target of 1500. She needed to tell me about a call I took too long ago. Suffice to say, complaints have been raised to her manager, following an incident where she was asked to follow up on something for me and claimed if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. I've been asking for everything in writing and repeat that mantra back to her when she claims to have told me something. Last week she asked me to see her after my call. I walked over and she wasn't there, so went back to my desk. She asked me why I didn't stay around, and I reminded her of the time she put in writing that I wasn't to spend more than 1 minute waiting for her if she asked to see me and was to go back to my desk to take calls. Not wasting time, she asked me to come over again, and when I did, she wasn't there. This repeated twice more before my shift was over. Each time I documented, logged out at 2:14. Came to your desk, you were not there, spent 45 seconds waiting, returned to desk and took another call at 2:16 in chat. She messages me to ask what time I finish. I tell her it was 2 minutes prior, and she says, "We can catch up now." I tell her that my shift is over and ask if she'll approve an overtime pay for an out-of-hours meeting. She tells me not to be silly and it will just be 10 minutes. I refuse and say if I don't get paid, we can do it tomorrow when I'm being paid. She's typing, then not, then typing, then not, choosing her words. I know she's angry at being challenged, and she decided to employ one of the tactics she used when she managed the team for a company where this was standard practice. "Okay, well, if you'd like to go home now, I can always make it a formal meeting." A formal meeting where I work as code for a meeting with HR, documented on your record for misconduct and repeated issues. She thinks she's won. Not a problem. Make a formal meeting. Ensure I have 24 hours notice, send a formal invite, and I will bring a support person with me. I log out and leave, but not before grabbing screenshots and saving a copy of the chat logs. Next day she called my bluff and had a meeting scheduled. I send it to my union rep and she comes in on the day. HR sits down and with us and opens with, "So we're here today to discuss some concerns. Your team leader asked you to attend an off-the-cuff catch-up 3 times, and for some reason, you refused? I quickly clarify what actually happened. My manager claims otherwise and I repeat her mantra, if it's not in writing, it didn't happen. Then I supply receipts. Her demands to put things in writing, her chat, my timestamps, my call logs, and her message to me afterwards. My union rep stares at the two of them with a small smile and asks, "So do you maintain the position that employees should attend meetings unpaid and that misconduct investigations are a good use of resources if they refuse?" HR said there may have been a miscommunication and that I could return to work. I have it put in writing that I am not accused of any misconduct and have been cleared of any false accusations with nothing documented on my staff file. Yesterday, my team was advised that our team leader had decided to pursue opportunities outside of the company and we were getting a new manager. Edit. Small comment to those that say it's a bad place to work. Full disclosure, it's actually not. Job is satisfying on a personal and ethical level. I deal with vulnerable people and help them. Pay and perks are great, and the people are great to work with. The metrics are more than reasonable, and all my managers over the last several years have been wonderful, except a couple, who were wrong for the role, and were swiftly removed or made to improve. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.